27th, 2004, and this is the beginning of an interview with Raymond Ayon at the office of Congressman David Dreyer, located in Glendora, California. Mr. Ayon is 76 years old, having been born on January 14, 1929. My name is Dorothy Schneider, and I'll be the interviewer. Mr. Ayon, welcome. Thank you for being a part of the Veterans History Project. And I'd like to begin the interview by having you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your family, what you did prior to being involved in the armed forces.
Azusa was a small town at the beginning when I was a small child, and I lived through a small community at the time, 1929, and all the folks there that I knew were orange pickers, say, citrus pickers, as those were Depression years, and that's the only job available.
This was Azusa, California.
Azusa, California. It was surrounded by orange groves, as you might recall, as was Glendora here. And I grew up in local elementary schools, and at age 15 or 16, 1941, the war broke out. And right away, I started to get the urge, like say, reading all these stories or hearing about my brothers. They volunteered right away, and they kept sending us stories about their adventures overseas. Well, like I say, I kept seeing all those John Wayne movies about gung-ho stuff, and I got the urge, and I was too young. I was only 16 at the time. After my sophomore year at Citrus High School here, I managed to get into the Merchant Marine at tender age of 16. And when I got there, I say, am I not too young to be doing this type of thing, young man's world? I mean, grown-up man's world. And I went ahead and signed up and boarded a ship in San Francisco Bay.
Did you have to go through any kind of training?
Nothing at all. At the Merchant Marine at that time was a civilian job.
Right.
And they saw fit that I be a good mess boy and cook's helper, dishwasher, and making tons of coffee for the seamen. And I spent a whole year in the Merchant Marine, a couple of voyages, one back to Japan, pick up troops, bring them back in the old Liberty ship, named USS Stepus Darius. And to this day, I don't know what Darius means, Stepus Darius, but that was the name of the ship, Liberty. Those ships were built in a big hurry.
I know.
During the war. And
Kaiser built them, didn't he?
Kaiser, yes. And I sailed, and we brought back a boatload of troops coming home from the wars in the Pacific. After that, San Francisco again.
Those ships used to break up in the high seas, didn't they?
I'll tell you the story about that. And we went empty after spending time in San Francisco. Our ship was vacant or free of cargo, and it was riding high, empty. So we sailed down the coast and went through the canal. Prior to that, I had shore leave there at Panama City on the Pacific side, and I wasn't used to drinking like the grown men were, and I got sicker than all get up. I got sick, but in fact, they carried me back on the ship, the older guys, And I said, boy, oh boy, I'm going to get to see the Panama Canal. Big adventure right there. And all I spent my time seeing through the locks was the walls going up and down because I had a porthole where I could see the locks. And I was busier than heck cleaning, making coffee, washing dishes, and I was kept very, very busy, feeding the crews and everything. But I didn't see much of the locks. But in the middle, 1 Tunnel Lake or something like that.
1 tunnel, yeah.
Yeah, we went through there, and I had a break, and I could see all the greenery alongside the jungle there, the shoreline.
Gatun Lake.
Gatun?
Gatun.
And this could be into a long story, but to cut things short, we got into the other side, the Atlantic side, and the guys bought a big bundle of bananas, a parrot. And the bananas, they hung on the wherever anybody could get them once they ripened. And the parrot, he ran free all over the boat. And he spoke Spanish. Okay, so we travel, and lo and behold, we hit a typhoon, big waves, where our little Stepus Darius Liberty ship was like down here, and the waves were up here, and that thing was empty, and it was creaking and groaning and moaning, and you could hear that ship. I thought surely it could break in half, you know. But even everybody was sick on that ship, even the skipper, old C. And I asked him, is this very rough weather? He says, the worst it can get. So that must have been quite a storm. Anyway, we passed the storm and wound our way to the entry at Norfolk or Chesapeake Bay. And we were anchored out there waiting for the pilot to take us into dry dock or someplace in Baltimore. And a Navy big transport ship broke its anchor or something, and we were in our little rooms, and I glance out and I see a big old ship had smashed us right in half, and did damage, but the ship was still sailable, so they took us to dry dock at Baltimore, and the ship was way up high, dry dock for the repairs, and it was getting very cold. The weather was up there in Baltimore, and the first thing I noticed, across the bay, there was a place with a flag flying. That was Fort McHenry. I remember that, Fort McHenry. Ain't that where the national anthem was wrote? I says, yeah. And I says, well, as long as we're going to be here, I'm going to go visit that place. So I took a bus, and through snow I walked to the fort, and there was a sign up front that says, closed for winter. So I went back and, let's see, what else did I do there? Dry dock, being repaired, can't do nothing much. So I took a trip to D.C., Washington, and I saw some of the sights there, but also to get there, there was about ankle-deep snow and very, very cold. So finally, after repairs, we spent, that's where I had the 17th birthday in Baltimore, New Year's or a little after New Year's. And I remember everybody blowing the big horn on the ship, and a lot of inebriated merchant mariners all over the place. Anyway, it was soon that they loaded us down with coal, of all things coal, and they'd taken all the armament off the ships. A Liberty ship had 2 guns in the end, big ones, and about 6 50 caliber machine guns. So they dismantled all these weapons and made it a true merchant ship. So with this coal, we headed south. And as we went down, the weather was getting warmer.
Were you in a convoy?
No, no, no. It was now civilian. The war was over. And we went to South America and took time to unload the ship. So I visited quite a bit of Rio de Janeiro and Santos, Brazil. And then Santos, they loaded up with, unloaded the coal and then reloaded with coffee. A lot of coffee. And I made some friends out there. The civilian Brazilian guard invited me to his home and said, I'll show you the town. So we did. It was enjoyable, and I learned what Brazil's all about, or more or less, that area. So we came back, and the union, Maritime Union, nailed me and says, you are not qualified to be a merchant mariner. So they let me go in New York, and they gave me passage back to California. So that was my end of the merchant marine adventure.
Well, then when did you enlist, or when did you enlist in the armed forces?
Okay, so I came back, and I had left school after my sophomore year, and I went back 1 year later to rejoin my classmates as a junior in high school. And I finished out the 2 years. After graduation in 1948, I joined the Air Force. Like, I don't know, I was still young and adventurous, and my high school sweetheart, she wanted to get married. I said, no, there's still a lot of things that I would like to do. So I joined the Air Force. And after basic training over here in San Antonio, or Lackland Air Force Base, out of basic training, they shipped us directly to the Far East, Japan. So, should I continue with the maritime story?
Well, are we leading towards Korea here?
Yeah.
Well, merchant marine is interesting, but I'd certainly like to hear about your experiences in Korea.
Oh yeah. Yeah, after about a year that we were in Japan, I was assigned to the 36th Fighter Bomber Squadron.
And what was your capacity?
Nothing yet. They couldn't find a spot for me. Or all my buddies were sent to aircraft mechanic school. But I couldn't qualify. I didn't have the aptitude. So the guy who was trying to send me to school kept trying. And on one occasion, in the meantime, they had placed me with the refueling unit crew, or what they call it, base refueling. I was driving a rig with a big tank of gasoline, refueling mostly the P-51 fighter planes and other bigger aircraft. So one day they tell me, boy, we found a place for you to go, school. And in my writings, I've written that we are sending you to Shankra Mechanic School. I knew nothing what a Shankra was. That's and I was elated. Hey, I'm going to mechanic school of some kind. But no, the surprise was that it was a medical school. A Shankra is some type of ED infection guys get. And they were, of all things, they were sending me to a medical laboratory technician school, along with being a corpsman or giving aid to the wounded and stuff. And here I am placed, the only Air Force guy amongst about 150 Army servicemen taking the medical schools, the corpsman school, give aid to the wounded. So I am taking the longer course in lab tech school. And I had no idea what I was getting into. A lab tech, what he does in civilian life, does in the service also. And in the training, they partnered me up with one lonely whack soldier, whack, and she would be my partner. I said, why do they pair them off? Because in class, they would have us stick each other. And in those days, they used 20 gauge needles, which is a big needle. So the girl, she probes into my veins, and boy, did it ever hurt.
Oh.
And then I tried to find her little old veins with that big old needle. And that was torture. Poor kid, to me, she was the bravest girl I've ever seen. Go ahead, Ray, don't be sorry. She says, go ahead, get your blood. And that only occurred once, as the instructor found that we were hurting each other pretty bad. So we take samples of blood and type them and count corpuscles and stuff like that. But anyway, we finished the course, and it was after New Year's.
Pardon me for interrupting. It seems like kind of an odd jump to go from driving a refueling truck to basically medical corps school.
Well, there was a story behind that too. I had my high school grades with me, and in biology I had straight A's.
Uh-huh.
I loved the course biology. And apparently these guys that gave me the assignment to go to school saw that. Your instructor at Citrus High School was Dr. Sturgis. I said, yes, a very good teacher. So maybe that's what turned them on to sending me to lab school.
I see.
But it wasn't all lab, it was also the training of taking care of wounded GIs. So I finished the course, and I had on-the-job training at air base called Edizuki in southern Japan, Kyushu, the biggest air base there. That's where our squadron was. They sent me to the base, they call it dispensary or infirmary or something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I had a lot of good practice there in doing my diagnosis of different ailments, mostly venereal. And there's so many stories to tell about that.
Oh, well, this is a G-rated audio.
Anyway, that's where I met my very good friend and buddy. I called him my guardian angel, old Big John Crabtree, a big, strong man, still a young man. And he showed me the ropes. And this man, he loved to give penicillin shots with that big old needle. They would bend over, and he'd give them the injection of the wonder drug penicillin at that time. And 1 or 2 doses of that penicillin stuff that would cure them of their ailments. So after a while, I had been working there at the base in the infirmary. And then on a Sunday, the war broke out in Korea. A couple of days later, I found myself on a C-47 transport plane. And we had no idea where we were going. We landed in an airstrip, a place called Suwon. And the battle was nearby. As when we had debarked the plane, we could hear cannon fire, artillery going off nearby. And we were loading wounded, casualties. And what struck me the most was pine boxes. They had numerous pine boxes. None of this fancy metal casket type thing. Apparently they hired Korean carpenters to bang out a whole bunch of wooden caskets, pine. And I recall the wood smelling green still, pitch coming out of the boxes. Blood oozing out, mixed with the pitch. And we loaded a whole bunch on the ship. Wounded coming in aboard ship.
I know how difficult it is. These are painful memories. It's all right. It's okay. You're a brave man. You're a brave man.
That was my first sight of war.
That's
Guys,
horrendous.
guys without arms, legs. That's where I learned to give up morphine shots.
How about if we turn off the video for just a minute, then we can start it again, if you want.
Guys then were around 19, 20-year-olds, some 18, just kids really. And these kids have been, I knew some of the Army guys, not on that plane, but maybe they were there, but they were all smudged with gunpowder and smelling of gunpowder, and it was a horrific situation there with a bunch of caskets, blood oozing up their sides, and all these wounded and injured people. And the one kid had no arms and bandaged up. And
Did you sense that these were North Koreans, or did you sense they were Chinese that were doing the attacking?
Oh, it was the North Koreans right away.
Because we interviewed one fellow who said that when he was in the jungles in Korea, that he would run across the Chinese with the red stars on the caps.
There's no jungles in Korea. There were no jungles.
Was that Vietnam?
Vietnam.
No. Oh well.
Anyway,
They were being supplied by the...
they had said that this was going to be a police action.
Right.
That it could be done, the war would be in a big hurry. They says, oh, go do your job, we'll bring all the bodies back and all the wounded and stuff. And then from police action, it turned into a conflict. Then the Korean incident or something minor, but in time it would turn into a whole lot more. Anyway, when it was at the beginning, when it was the police action, they said, well, we'll bring all the bodies back to Japan, and at the hospital in Fukuoka, they would lay them out in the courtyard there. And I didn't tell you about the body parts. And it's true that sometimes they would make up a body by getting different parts. And it was gory, gruesome, bloody mess.
How about the MASH units in Korea? I mean,
I eventually wound up with a MASH unit.
Uh-huh.
The Army needed a latte, so they sent for me. and I got stuck with them for months at a time, and years. I was in Korea so long that I saw the 4 seasons. The winter time is cold, deadly cold. And us guys from sunny Southern California weren't used to this stuff. And not only that, we weren't prepared clothing-wise towards the elements. We
They
had
didn't outfit you with?
combat boots, like the combat boots used to have a little strap. And even my folks at home sent me some heavy sweatshirts to wear underneath to try to keep warm. But that's one different story. I wrote down in my memoirs as the how deadly napalm is. You've heard of napalm?
Oh, sure.
Okay, that burns wherever. So they sent us out on a detail to pick up firewood. And the armies ahead of us had already cleaned out the area of firewood. So we were out there in no man's land looking for firewood of all things. Excuse me, I gotta go to the bathroom.
Well, tell me about the napalm and collecting the firewood.
Okay, one of our guys, we could find no firewood. So he says, let's go to the strip and rip off a drum of napalm. He'd seen it done before. So we had a tent. We had a drum, gasoline fuel drum. Anyway, we made a stove out of it. And by experimenting how much material to put in there, the napalm, it would light up. And sometimes it would stay for hours and hours burning. So that was a perfect heat source. As we were shivering, we were cold. And you get in situations where it's sub-zero cold.
How about the fumes? It smells so.
Well, there was a vent. We'd, in order to get the heat, we didn't, I don't remember the smoke or stuff like that. Anyway, it was a good source of fire or fuel. Keep us warm from freezing. So this type of thing went on, and I made several trips with the caskets, pine wood caskets. And I'll never forget the load of caskets I had in Japan to take to the morgue or hospital. The caskets were behind me, about 6 high, and there's a sign that says stop in case of low-flying aircraft. And I wasn't paying too much attention, and here comes a plane to land, and I slammed on my brakes, and here comes a casket, and that casket might have gotten me right in the neck if it hadn't been for the back of the seat.
Oh my goodness.
It slammed into the seat and put me against the steering wheel. So that was a close one, but I had to push back and push that casket back where it belonged. Being more careful next time, or trips crossing runways.
When you were with the MASH unit, and of course we all know that the TV series MASH lasted 3 times longer than the war did.
Well,
was it like that?
in cases, yes. Like my commanders in the MASH unit were an Australian. Now remember, this was a United Nations war.
I know.
And we had troopers from all different parts of the world. My commander was named a Cater, Commander Cater, an old veteran soldier whom I'd get to know real well. He carried a gun with him all the time, a Ren gun. Then after having left Commander Cater behind, we were going up to another place. And this time they recruited a civilian. I wrote about him last night. A civilian, I don't know, remember his name. They made a captain out of him in charge of us. He was a missionary's son who had a leprosarium in Tegu, right in the middle of town.
A leprosarium being a leper colony?
Leper colony. He gave us, our commander, the captain, gave us a tour of the place. That's a place to stay away from, the leprosarium. Anyway, at Tegu, I had experience of taking care of enemy POWs. We would give them a bath with hoses, delouse them. I remember this, I don't know if it was North Korean or Chinaman, that had a big wound in his face, in his eyes. And the poor guy was peeling out maggots out of his eyes. Anyway, we treated him as best we could and then gave him inoculation of something, I don't recall what it was. But when we saw me coming with that needle, they were scared terrible. They were frightened at my syringes. And
well, they probably had never seen them.
yeah, well, we gave them good treatment. Treated all their wounds and sent them on their way. So this story goes on and on. 2 years, off and on. The Busan perimeter is when the North Koreans almost shoved us into the ocean.
Right, yeah.
And we had very little real estate there in Korea at that time. In fact, our squadron was sent back to Japan.
How did people feel about MacArthur?
I got a glimpse of MacArthur.
Was that enough?
Yeah, in one of the crossings of the Han River, which is the main river separating Seoul from the south, there's a Han River. All bridges were down, and we were waiting in line to cross a pontoon bridge. And here comes a motorcycle and a lot of horns and sirens and like, make way, make way. And here comes a staff car with the flags, 4 stars. I don't know how many stars MacArthur had.
5 stars.
And the guy says, oh, there's old General MacArthur. And they gave him the throughway. As he went past, I do remember seeing his corncob pipe.
Huh?
Naturally, all the young guys, all the soldiers, everybody was waving and whistling and cheering, but he paid no attention to us. MacArthur.
Well, now, speaking of medals and 5 stars, can you tell us a little bit about some of the medals that you received here that you brought with you today? You can pick it up if you want to.
These are the originals. These are the originals I was given over there before my departure from the war.
Uh-huh. And your dog tags.
Yeah.
And tell me about these medals here.
Oh, the Air Force, #1. And this is the Korean President Citation, which was brought back, I guess. The original had these colors. This one has these colors.
Like the
still.
Korean flag, uh-huh.
Yeah, it's about the same as this one. It was the original, given to me about, 60 years ago, when I left. And this one is the Korean United Nations
Right,
Service Medal.
blue and white. Mm-hmm.
The 5th Air Force is what I was in. Good conduct, Japan occupation.
Right.
the heck is this one?
That looks like United Nations.
United
one, too.
Nations, yeah. And this is the Defense, National Defense Medal. And the one I'm lacking is Purple Heart, because I got hurt over there too. And during the commotion and of movement and everything, I never received my Purple Heart.
Well, it's not too late. There have been other people that
I've read that
Congressman Dreyer sometimes
there's allowances made for things that happened during the war. I was involved in a very nasty crash. Not crash, but automobile accident. I wrote about it. We were, well, anyway, on this, my original dog tags and my rations can cut in two. And I must have cut into open hundreds of cans, acquiring a taste for tuna. And these were leftovers or from the Second World War. Everything we had just about was Second World War stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I'm pretty proud of these.
Yes, you should be.
What'd you say about MASH?
Oh, just if the TV show that we all kind of form our opinions, if it was really like that.
It gives an idea, but to me, it was very different because we were there and we saw what it was really like, and I never saw any pretty nurses. No pretty nurses in the real thing. And the leading characters were dressed properly.
I guess what I was thinking more of is sometimes the kind of black humor in the face of all of this enemy artillery barrages. They're still making jokes and
well, then I have something to say about that too. I would say there's a lot of don't tell the truth. I don't want to call them imposters or anything like that.
well, it's a movie show, we know that.
Because a lot of, I know guys myself that, like I was asked, there's a question there, did you see combat?
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of irks me. Is war all that is? Combat? Everybody wants to see somebody shooting somebody else. Combat. Combat, in wars there's a lot of things happening behind those front lines. And people don't seem to realize all they want to see is a gung-ho John Wayne type thing. I frown on that, and there's guys marching in parades here that I know wearing a whole bunch of lettuce or campaign ribbons that they didn't earn. I'm spilling the beans now because I know the imposters they are. That's why I frown on joining any service organization at this time.
I was going to ask if you joined any.
No, as I went there once thinking that I might join. Oh, Ray, where did you see combat? I didn't see no combat. I was a medic. Although, even as a medic, I carried a weapon. Mine must have been the dirtiest weapon in all of Korea. I never fired the thing. Got rusty. And during that accident I was in, the truck that should have landed on me landed on my rifle, bent it in half. The big push when they were chasing the Koreans out of South Korea.
In Incheon?
Yeah, MacArthur had made his Incheon landing,
Right.
So we were moving forward. And the word was that he would have us home by Christmas. So everybody's hurrying to chase North Koreans out of South Korea. And I was in a truck convoy. And we were the last vehicle in that convoy. Trucks, ambulances, and our weapons carrier in the rear. We were catching all the dust. It was summer day. And there was a makeshift road grader trying to clean the road.
What's a road raider?
road grader. They had a blade in front of a truck pushing dirt out of the side,
Oh.
out of the way. And the dirt, the berm side, was very narrow. So gingerly, all the convoy went around them in good order. Except this nut that was driving our truck stopped at a little supposedly liquor store, but they sold him a little bottle of Korean booze they called Santori. So real little macho man, he was drinking that stuff, and in time it reached him, and that stuff was poisonous. It got to him, I guess. When our turn came over, go around that road grader, the berm gave way. And I said, Jesus, we're going over. So naturally I tried to jump, but the momentum of the truck going over threw me with it. So there I go, flying through space, along with the two teenage kids we picked up as hitchhikers. And the driver hung onto the wheel. And I said, whoa, I landed, and I knew I was going to die then. And it's a fact that when you feel that you're going to die, you say, you can relive your whole life through. I found that to be true. And all of a sudden, I saw the shadow coming down on top of me, the truck. See, we were thrown ahead of the truck. And I remember seeing the kids, the baggage, all flying down with us. So I could barely open my eyes when I got up, and I saw that truck rolling twice. And it landed in the river bottom there with its wheels on the ground. I heard crying and moaning and groaning, and I felt myself with broken bones, none. I was bleeding all over my head, my side, and aches and pains. So.
But you survived.
Yeah. And then there was a whole bunch of refugees on the road, and the workers that were up there. I waved them down for help. And they came down to help us. Took all our belongings up there. Took out the casualty, one of the boys, and the other one was about to die too. They took him up. That guy in the truck, he hung onto the wheel and rode it all the way down. And that truck was a good one, I guess, and he got it going again after all that tumbling down. And he managed to find his way up. And I got my aid kit, medical aid kit, and I got some compressed bandages and wrapped my face. And here recently, my wife had our wedding picture redone. And in that wedding picture, about 4 years later, 56, I still carry that scar that I got in Korea. My right eye was banged up pretty bad, but it's officially blind now. If I were to go this way, I can't see you. I've got one good eye left. I guess it was me that punched myself like this. And in the hit, I banged myself 2 big black eyes. I had head wounds, dripping blood all over my face. My side especially was dripping down. So finally we took the kids to a Korean hospital in the next village or town, and they wouldn't accept them. They said, we're already full, we can't help you. I said, well, what are we gonna do with this dead kid and the one that's sick? The other one's about to die too. So reluctantly, they accepted him. Finally, we got to MASH unit, where they patched me up pretty good. Give me a day off, so. But my work was needed as a lab tech, so I got started. I was a walking wounded, say, all bandaged up and doing my job over there.
How did you deal with the stress?
The stress of this accident?
Just in general.
Well, you saw me bawling here a while ago and thinking back, wow, did I see do that? And
it just seemed normal at the time?
no, I was glad to be out of there. Did I experience all that? Certainly I did.
How do you feel it's changed your life by having been in the armed forces and being in Korea?
How has it changed my life? Well, knowing that I did a job in a faraway place and was quite proud of what I did. That's why I frown on these guys playing soldier over here wearing ribbons they never earned. I, for one, don't know. These 2 stars were on my, what they mean? They're not battle stars, I don't think. Or was it for the 2 years, but star for each year? Silver stars?
Isn't there a book?
Yeah, they sent me a.
They usually send a book that explains what all the
Yeah,
medals mean.
these are taken care of at Randolph Field, Texas. And whatever they are, I must have earned them because
You got them.
I don't know. Like I wrote that when I left, they handed me a handful of medals or awards, and the medals I didn't get till recently. They sent them to me from Randolph Field. But there's so many stories to tell.
Oh, yes.
Like there's a train ride. The train ride. I titled my story on that one, planes, trucks, ambulances, trains. This idiot that went off the road would get me in trouble again. He said, you're going to ride the train and guard that boxcar full of medical supplies. This was at a place called Yeongdong-po, the city next to Seoul, Korea. And our train boxcar was right alongside a brewery. And what we didn't know was that this dumb guy, he went and emptied our water rations and loaded them with beer, thinking he was being smart. So the train rolls out and gets across the river, Han, and makes it to, well, we start on our journey. And Seoul, Korea, and Pyongyang, the North Korean capital, are pretty close. And it wouldn't take but a day's ride, I think, 100, 200 miles at the most. Anyway, here we were in the middle of the week, and 3 days had gone by, and we'd eaten our rations, and naturally we wanted water, fresh water from our supply. And here we open those containers, and it's all beer, rotten beer, like vinegar. Man, oh man, those 2 other guys that were with us, there was 4 of us, wanted to kill this guy because we needed water. You know what we did for water? Go to the engine and have the guy blow his whistle or something, and the water would spurt out. So that was our water supply for once, and melted snow. Then our rations ran out. And there was no communications to anybody. We're out there in North Korea, and I remember being sidetracked at Pumanjong.
Yeah.
That's where they had the armistice, or
Right.
it's still going on over there, the
Right.
demarcation line. Pumanjong was just a village then. And further up, we ran out of food. We ran out of rations. And we were hungry, naturally. You wouldn't believe this, that we went out searching for food from farmers that were just in worse shape than us. But they were pretty smart, and their refrigerators were big holes in the ground, little cellar type things that were frozen stiff. So that's where they kept their foodstuffs. We managed to get a chicken, bags of rice, vegetables of any kind, chili peppers that they love, the Koreans do, chili peppers. So here we come back, and you know what we were using for money? We had no money, no charter, so we were swapping blankets, which they wanted badly. So we swapped blankets for foodstuffs, and so we boiled that chicken and with makeshift containers. We feathered it and cut him up in pieces and put him in the pot. And anything that would cook, the vegetables that we'd gotten. And that was our good hot meal. To this day, I go to, say, Mexican restaurants, and I ask them, do you have arroz con pollo? Rice with chicken? Oh, I remember that. So after a week, we arrive at Pyongyang, which is the capital of North Korea. Snow all over the place. And we weren't there about 3 days. As is back up, we're heading south because the Chinese are coming in strong. And once again, we could hear the artillery going off, boom, 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 boom. The Chinese came in real strong. And all these retreats we went on, I went over 3 of them, 3 retreats, but they called them strategic withdrawals. We were running for our lives. These Chinamen, or we'd have wound up in a prison someplace or killed. Also, that boxcar was set, go and destroy that boxcar, you know where it's at. So we set it on fire, everything in it. All they asked for is get the narcotic chest, and I remember saving the narcotic chest and my microscope. So we all piled into an ambulance, the guy ahead of me. And as we were going out of Pyongyang, they had a big parkway in between double drive. And they had it all stacked up with munitions, the Americans did, or the United Nations trooper. And that was all going up in smoke. Boom, 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 all over the place. So up a rise out of town, we could see back, and we saw, like this movie of some Sodom and Gomorrah. That place was burning up. Pyongyang.
Well, this has been a very, very interesting interview, and you certainly have a lot of memories and experiences, and just like to thank you for sharing just even a portion of everything that you did, and certainly what you did for your country, and a grateful nation. So thank you very, very much for coming in today and speaking with us. And